Memphis, Tennessee, December 24th, 1985. The Memphis Rescue Mission on South Main Street had been feeding and sheltering the homeless since 1947, which meant it had been doing this work for 38 years before the evening in question, and had developed over those 38 years the particular institutional knowledge of a place that has seen everything and is surprised by very little. The director in 1985 was a man named Raymond Cole, who had been running the mission for 11 years and who had the steady, unhurried manner of someone whose job was to be present for other people's worst moments and had made a private peace with what that required. The mission had a dining hall that seated 200, a dormitory with 140 beds, a kitchen that ran 18 hours a day, and a small common room off the main entrance where donated televisions and secondhand furniture created the atmosphere of a living room that belonged to everyone, and therefore to no one. The walls had been painted by a volunteer group from a local church in 1982 in colors that had seemed cheerful at the time and had since faded to something more ambiguous. Christmas Eve at the mission was the busiest night of the year. Not because more people needed shelter in December, the need was constant, but because Christmas brought out the volunteers and the donations in numbers that the other months of the year rarely achieved, which meant that Christmas Eve had more food, more staff, more activity, and the particular complicated atmosphere of an institution that is simultaneously at its most operational and most emotionally charged. Raymond Cole had been managing Christmas Eve at the mission for 11 years. He knew the rhythms of it. He knew what 8 o'clock looked like. The dinner service winding down, the dormitory filling, the common room settling into the particular quiet of people who have been fed and are warm and are doing the necessary work of getting through Christmas Eve. At 8 o'clock on December 24th, 1985, a large man came through the mission's front door. Raymond Cole saw him from his office, which had a window that looked out into the main entrance. The man was large, broad-shouldered, heavy-set, moving with the unhurried deliberateness that large men sometimes have when they have learned to take up space without apology. He wore a deep royal blue jacquard-patterned silk shirt with gold brocade detail that was entirely incongruous in the mission's entrance hall. The kind of clothing that belonged in a concert venue or a good restaurant, not in a homeless shelter on South Main Street at 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve. He carried a guitar case. Raymond came out of his office. The man was standing in the entrance, looking at the common room. "Can I help you?" Raymond said. The man looked at him. "I'd like to play for them," he said. He nodded toward the common room. "If that's all right." Raymond looked at the guitar case. He looked at the man. He had been running the mission for 11 years, and people came through the door with many different kinds of intentions, and he had learned to read them. This man's intention was simple, and it was what he had said it was. "Come on in," Raymond said. He did not ask for a name. The man had not offered one. It did not seem in the moment like the kind of thing that required exchange. The man set his case on the floor of the common room and opened it and took out a guitar. Not the kind of guitar that Raymond would have expected. Not an acoustic, not a classical, but a large electric guitar, pitch black with gold hardware, that required an amplifier to be heard properly. The man looked at the outlets on the wall and at the small amplifier that the mission had for their occasional music events, and then at Raymond. "May I?" he said. Raymond nodded. The man plugged in. He settled into a folding chair that someone had vacated near the center of the room. He adjusted the volume on the amplifier, not loud, the kind of volume that fills a room without pressing against the walls. He looked out at the people in the common room. There were about 60 people in the common room on Christmas Eve, 1985. Men and women, ranging from their 20s to their 70s, the full demographic of a Memphis shelter on the busiest night of the year. Some were watching the television in the corner. Some were talking. Some were sitting alone with the particular quality of stillness that people have when they are doing nothing but existing through a difficult moment. The man with the guitar looked at them for a moment. Then he closed his eyes and played. He played the blues. Slow, unhurried, the kind of playing that does not announce itself but simply arrives and fills the available space. The first song had no title that Raymond could place. It might have been something well-known played in a way that made it unfamiliar, or it might have been something original. It sounded like Memphis. which was the highest compliment Raymond knew how to give to music played in this city. The television in the corner was still on for a moment. Then someone turned it off. The conversation stopped, not all at once, but one by one, the way conversations stop when something requires attention and the attention is given willingly. The man played for an hour. He played without announcing song titles or speaking between pieces. He played through Christmas songs that Raymond recognized. Silent Night slowed to a blues tempo, its familiar melody made strange and more honest by the treatment. The way that slowing something down reveals what is actually in it, and things Raymond didn't recognize that might have been originals or might have been songs Raymond simply didn't know, played in a way that made them feel as if they had always existed and were only now being remembered. He played a long, slow piece that might have been the blues, or might have been a lullaby, or might have been both simultaneously. The blues and the lullaby are closer to each other than most people think. Both are music for people who need something in the dark. The blues for what has happened, the lullaby for what might yet happen, and both saying the same thing underneath, which is, you are not alone in this. I am here with you. Rest. At 9 o'clock, he stopped. He sat for a moment with the guitar across his lap, the pitch-black Gibson with its gold hardware, the guitar that had filled the common room for an hour with something that the room had not known it was waiting for. He looked out at the 60 people. Some were crying quietly. Not the loud grief of people in crisis. The mission saw that every day, but the quiet kind. The kind that comes when something has touched something a person has been carrying for a long time and protected carefully, and the music has found it anyway. Some were sitting with their eyes closed, with the particular stillness of people who are receiving something and do not want to disturb the receiving by moving. Some were looking at the man with expressions that Raymond had seen before in this room, in this work, on the faces of people who have been given something they did not expect and are still deciding what to do with the receiving of it. The man looked at the room for a moment, then he nodded once. Not a bow, nothing theatrical, just the nod of a man acknowledging that what needed to happen has happened. He unplugged the guitar with the careful attention of someone who respects equipment. He laid it in the case. He closed the latches one by one. He stood up. He shook Raymond's hand, a firm, warm grip. He walked to the door. "Thank you," Raymond said. "Can I at least get your name, for our records?" The man paused at the door. He looked at Raymond with the warm, patient eyes of a man who has been asked this question in many rooms and has developed a settled relationship with how he answers it. "Merry Christmas," he said. He walked out into the Memphis December night. Raymond stood in the entrance for a moment. Then he went back to managing Christmas Eve at the mission, which still had several hours to go and which required his attention. The following year, on December 24th, 1986, at 8 o'clock in the evening, the same man came through the mission's front door. Same blue shirt, same guitar case, same unhurried deliberateness. Raymond Cole recognized him immediately. He did not ask for a name. The man played for an hour and left. This happened every year. Raymond told no one, not because he was hiding it, but because it did not seem like a thing that needed to be told. It happened. It was real. The people in the common room received it each Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock, and Raymond witnessed it each year, and that was the complete transaction. Some things are not stories to be told. They are just things that happen, year after year, in the dark of December, in a room where people who have nowhere else to be receive whatever is offered. In 1989, Raymond's assistant director, a young woman named Patricia, who had been at the mission for 2 years, was working late on December 24th and happened to be finishing paperwork in the small office near the entrance when the man came in at 8 o'clock. She heard the guitar start from the common room. She put down her pen. She went to the doorway and stood there and listened for 40 minutes before the demands of the evening pulled her back to other things. She was a careful person, methodical, the kind who wrote things down and filed them. She had grown up in Memphis, and she knew Memphis music, and she had listened to 40 minutes of guitar through the common room door, and her mind had gone somewhere she was not entirely prepared for it to go. The next morning, she came to Raymond's office and sat in the chair across from his desk in the way she sat when she had something to say that required sitting. "The man who played last night," she said. Do you know who he is? No, Raymond said. Both true and not true, in the way that many honest answers are. Patricia looked at him. She recognized the answer for what it was. I think I recognized him, she said carefully. I could be wrong. Raymond looked at her for a moment. It doesn't matter, he said. He comes every year. He plays. He leaves. He paused. That's who he is here. That's the whole of it. Patricia looked at him for another moment. She was a careful, methodical person. She understood the distinction between information and knowledge, and between knowledge and what you do with it. She nodded. She went back to her work. She did not mention it again. The man came every year for 15 years. He came in 1990 when the mission was at capacity and they had set up cots in the hallway. And he played anyway, and the people in the hallway could hear it through the common room door. He came in 1991 and 1992 and 1993, always on Christmas Eve, always at 8 o'clock, always in the blue shirt with the gold brocade, always with the guitar case. In 12 years, Raymond Cole never saw him wear anything else on this night, which he came to understand was not a coincidence. This was how the man dressed for the thing he came to do. The same way Raymond wore his good suit on Christmas Eve because it was the night that required it. The mission grew and changed over those years. New staff, new programs, new paint on the walls. Raymond Cole retired in 1994 and was replaced by a woman named Diane, who had been his assistant for 6 years and who was told, in the transition, about the man who came on Christmas Eve. He'll come at 8, Raymond told her. He'll play for an hour. He'll leave. Don't ask his name. Diane had raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because it doesn't matter, Raymond said. What matters is that he comes. He came in 1994 with Diane now at the door instead of Raymond. He came in 1995 and 1996 and 1997 and 1998 and 1999. On December 24th, 2000, he did not come. 8 o'clock arrived, and the common room filled as it always filled on Christmas Eve. 110 people this year, the largest crowd in the mission's recent history, the television on in the corner, the conversations at their normal level. Diane had told the evening staff about the man, as Raymond had told her, matter-of-factly. At 8 o'clock a man comes, he plays guitar for an hour, he leaves. Don't ask his name. 8:15, 8:30, 9. The television stayed on. The conversations continued. The common room received its Christmas Eve in the ordinary way, which was fine. The ordinary way was already more than many people had. But Diane stood in the doorway at 9 o'clock and felt the particular absence of something that has been present for 15 years and is now not present, and understood that absence as a fact rather than a delay. She told herself he was delayed. She said this to herself twice, and it had the quality of something said because it is more comfortable than the alternative, not because it is believed. He did not come on December 24th, 2001, or 2002. In the spring of 2003, Diane was at her desk on a Tuesday morning reading the Memphis Commercial Appeal with the first cup of coffee of the day when she turned to the entertainment section. There was a feature article, the kind of piece that newspapers run when they are taking stock of something large, when the career or the body of work or the life has reached a scale that requires accounting. A retrospective, an attempt to measure. She read the headline. She read the article. She sat with it for a long time, long enough that the coffee went cold. Then she opened the bottom drawer of her desk, the one with the things that didn't have a proper place but were not throwaway things, and took out the guitar pick. She had found it on the floor of the common room on the morning of December 25th, 2000, the morning after the last visit. She had been walking through the room during the early morning cleanup when she had seen it on the worn linoleum floor near where the folding chair had been. She had picked it up and held it, a custom pick, thick, worn completely smooth at the striking edge with the particular smoothness that comes from thousands upon thousands of uses. She had not known what to do with it. She had put it in the drawer with the instinct, not reasoned, just felt, that it was not something to be thrown away. She held it and read the article again. B.B. King, 40 years of recording, 15,000 concerts, the thrill is gone, the Grammy, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the man who had defined American blues for half a century. And there, near the end of the article, a line that she read 3 times. In later years, King became known for his quiet acts of generosity, appearing without announcement at small venues, visiting hospitals and schools, playing for people who had no expectation of receiving what he gave them. She closed the newspaper. She put the pick back in the drawer. She did not tell anyone. She had been told 11 years earlier by the man who understood these things that what mattered was that he came, not who he was, not the name, the coming. The hour of music on Christmas Eve, year after year, for people who had nowhere else to be. She kept the pick for the rest of her time at the mission, and when she retired in 2012, she took it with her, and it sat on the windowsill of her house for the years that followed, catching whatever light came through. On May 14, 2015, B.B. King died in Las Vegas. He was 89 years old. Diane read the news on her phone. She sat with it for a while. Then she went to the window and looked at the pick on the sill, which was small and dark and worn at the edges and did not look like much of anything except what it was. She thought about 60 people in a common room in 1985, turning off the television and sitting in the dark with the blues on Christmas Eve. She thought about 110 people in 2000, the last time. She thought about 15 years of the same blue shirt and the same guitar case and the same unhurried walk through the mission's front door at 8 o'clock. She thought about what Raymond had told her. What matters is that he came. She picked up the pick. She held it. She put it back. Some things you keep, not because you need them, but because they are the only evidence you have of something that happened and that you are not ready to let become purely memory. Some things need to remain objects. The pick stayed on the windowsill. If there is something someone did for you quietly, without your knowing who they were or why they did it, and you found out only later, drop it in the comments. I read everyone. And which B.B. King song do you hear when December comes? I've always wanted my music to speak for me. I hope it has. B.B. King.